Great to be back here. I think there are some familiar older faces. I think there's some new faces, so it's wonderful to be here, and especially again before Rosh Hashanah. I take every opportunity, just on a personal level, to try to use whatever I can share as sort of maybe a message to myself. We all have our responsibility to get ready for this day. I remember for my Rabbi, I went to Yeshiva Chavetz Chaim, and my Rabbi would always say that, you really can feel a difference between Europe and America. And he grew up in Europe, at least in his early years. And he remembers his father telling him, and he himself witnessing, that when they would bless the new month of Elul, which we did 2 weeks ago, we're now in the midway point of this incredible month of Elul, when they would bench the month, they would bless the month and introduce the month on Shabbos morning by saying Rosh Chodesh will be on this and this day, that the women in Europe would automatically start breaking down and crying. The words Rosh Chodesh Elul just would bring about such emotion and such a feeling on the part of the women, who generally are just much more emotional and just much more tuned to these spiritual opportunities, that's how palpable the feeling was. I think in America, and certainly as the years move on and we're further away from that kind of mindset, it becomes more and more challenging. But still, we have to still do the job of doing what we can to try to get ourselves ready for this incredible day called Rosh Hashanah. It's only 2 weeks away. And Elul is a month to make it happen. Elul is this month where we see right away this Anila Dodi, the Dodi Li, this expression of Elul, of this love affair, so to speak, this unique relationship between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, between us and God, is more palpable in this month than any other month. That's why it's called Elul, Anila Dodi, V'Dodi Li. Those 4 letters reflect a unique I am to my beloved, and my beloved is to me. So there's something special going on in the air, and our job is to try to grab it. Our job is to try to capitalize on it. So, certainly Elul, we associate Elul, of course, with tshuva, the idea of repentance, the idea of coming closer to Hashem, changing our ways, and all that is true. And, I just tonight I wanted to pick on a particular aspect, an aspect that I think, unfortunately, we don't hear about enough. I think, again, I'm not sure how many of you are products of the educational system of the Jewish schools. I'm not sure, but, as being part of that world, as being part of Valley Torah High School now, I'm starting my 33rd year. Tomorrow's the first day of school. So, I certainly can relate to sort of the traps that we fall into in Jewish education. And very often we are so focused on the action, on the doing, on the mitzvah, on the technicality of it, the details of it, and they're all very important. I'm certainly not here to in any way diminish in any way of the importance of doing a mitzvah right. In fact, in 2 weeks or so, a little bit less than 2 weeks, we're going to be blowing the shofar, and when we blow that shofar, the rabbi is going to be sitting there with his stopwatch, or not a stopwatch, but with his wristwatch, and he's going to be looking at the seconds, and everything is going to have to be exact. You want the tkiyah to be as long as it needs to be, the chua to be what it needs to be, the shvarim. So I'm not here to sort of in any way diminish the importance of details. But I have to be honest, and I have to sort of just share with you what Chazal teach us, that details, while they're very, very important, it cannot be the end of the story. It cannot be the whole story. And the sad thing is that way too often, and we see it in Tanakh, we see it in the writings of the prophets, that when we get too involved in the details and lose sight of the feeling and the connection and the love and the relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if we are doing things without the proper feeling behind what we do, we're missing it. We're missing the boat. It sounds dramatic, and it sounds maybe overstated, but it's really not. If you look at the sources, and you look at the rabbis, you look at the Torah, you look at everything that we have, the message that I think the other parts of religion of the Jewish world, very often you read these articles about in the realms of Reform and conservative Judaism, and they very often accuse us of sort of being the part of religion that is focused on detail. And they claim they have the heart, they have the the love, whether it be for the love of Israel, the love of the Tikkun Olam, and all these wonderful phrases. And I'm not here to put any of that down, but it's just not true that we are not a religion where heart matters. We are our belief, and the Orthodox view of Judaism is absolutely the heart is critical. Absolutely, the heart needs to be there. And if we find ourselves going way too quick through life and just, doing everything just simply by rote and almost robotic, and we see very often, again, you see it with kids very often as they grow up, and there's such pressure to just do, which is really nice in a certain way. But if that's what you're training yourself to become, some kind of robot who doesn't stop and reflect, why am I doing this? And who am I doing it for? And what is being accomplished? And what am I about? And what's my feeling? And what's my connection? Where am I going with all this? That's critical. And especially as we approach the beginning of a new year, if we can do anything to get ourselves in a mindset where we start slowing things down and appreciating the opportunity to do a mitzvah properly and to do it with the right heart. The Rambam says an incredible thing. Great Maimonides says, why do we have so many mitzvahs? We have, as you know, 613 commandments. And he says this at the end of Gemara Makos. He says that why did God give us so many commandments? The typical answer is, and again, maybe you're shy to volunteer. Anybody want to maybe just take a stab at it? Why do we have 613 commandments? So if we had 400, it wouldn't be enough. If we had 300, it wouldn't be enough. Why do we need 613?
Well, the 113 is actually divided in half between men and women.
Well, okay, there are there's 613. Right, not every Jew has 613. You're 100% right about that. Women have some, and men have others, and Kohanim have them, and the Levites have theirs. But why so many? So let me just tell you what the Rambam says. He says an amazing thing. He says, and this really will blow your mind. The typical answer, just to give you the typical answer, the conventional wisdom is the more mitzvahs we have, the more ability we have to fulfill God's word, the more merit we have, the more reward that we get. Every mitzvah is something that we do that's beautiful. Every time we respect our parents, every single time we do chesed, we do kindness for another person, all that is wonderful, and it's a beautiful mitzvah. So the more we have, the more mitzvot we have, the more reward we get, and the greater the opportunity to do good things.
Isn't it also more opportunity to miss out on those things and to fail from those things?
Okay, we don't look at that aspect, but you're right about that. It does sort of create another pitfall for us, because now that we have so many, we can miss up and mess up, and that's true. It's a valid point, and maybe that's why the Rambam doesn't learn that way. It's a great discussion to have, but at the end of the day, even if we mess or miss or we mess up on a number of different things, if we do one, then the merit of doing one mitzvah really overweighs a lot of the negatives of the missed opportunities. But it's a great point you're making, and that's really part of the Rambam's question. So Rambam's answer is a fascinating answer. The Rambam says the reason why God gave us 613 commandments is because the more commandments we have, the better the chance of getting one right. And I kid you not. The better chance we have of getting one right. And if you get one right, if you nail one mitzvah on the head, if you can sort of hit it out of the park, if I can use a baseball metaphor, and just right in the perfect part of the bat, and you hit that, you blast that ball, and it goes over the fence 450 feet, is that perfectly sweet spot. If you do a mitzvah like that kind of perfect swing and perfect contact, that's your ticket to the next world. Okay, we don't talk a lot about the next world, and I'm not here to talk about it tonight either, but we do know, and certainly it's fundamental to Judaism, that we are gathering up all of our wonderful schusim, all of our wonderful merits, so that after 120 years, we know that our souls don't just go puff and disappear. Our souls live on. And the more we do here to prepare that and to get ourselves ready for that, the greater the opportunity for us to merit that incredible reward after life here on earth. So says the Rambam, our goal is to get one right. When you say right, the Rambam means total purity, total sincerity. No fanfare, no bright lights, no front page Mishpacha magazine article, none of that stuff. You're doing it for no other reason but because you want to do the right thing. Because God asks us to, and I want to please God. I love Him, I appreciate what He's done for me, and I want to do something right. And that sometimes requires, in the Cholos Havavos, the great Mussar work called The Duties of the Heart, says it very, very clearly. He says you have to sometimes really, really be focused on the quality of what you do and not the quantity of what you do. And very often we're just sort of, we love to pack in the mitzvahs and just keep going, and we're busy, we're just piling on. It's really great. But if you're piling on things that are qualitatively deficient, because you haven't thought about it, you haven't taken the time to reflect about the purpose of what it is that you're doing, then he says you're way better off getting fewer quality mitzvos than many more lacking quality mitzvot. And it sort of really, begs us to sort of, really ask ourselves, what it is that we can do to really slow things down and to start reflecting, to start appreciating what it is that the Rambam is very, very famous for comparing our relationship with God to a relationship between a husband and wife. And I'm not sure how many married people there are here, but there are a few, but I imagine most of you are not. And maybe it's going to be harder for you to imagine, but you probably could still relate to the idea that a truly perfect husband-wife relationship is one where both partners, and the Rambam speaks about the man, how a husband, when he loves his wife, he's completely immersed in that love. He's spending all day thinking about what I can do to make sure my wife is happy. What can I do to please my wife? And I'm sure as women you can relate to an empty gesture of somebody. Again, the truth of the matter is I have it's maybe not really the right way to go. I have my flowers ordered every other week from a florist who drops them off every Thursday night, every other Thursday night. And you know what? I'm thinking to myself, it was nice at the beginning that I put that order into play, and now my wife knows that we're going to have every second week we're going to have a beautiful bouquet of flowers, and it really lasts quite a long. Very often it lasts even more than a week. But the point is that but it's automatic. It's rote that I bothered to go to the flower shop and maybe pick out a different bouquet or a different style or something different, something special, something unique that would really show that I thought about what would make my wife happy. Or they just sort of put on a credit card and so yes, you sort of cover the table and you've got the table covered as far as a beautiful Shabbos table, but for that kind of subtlety I've got to do something else. I can't rely on that flower order to convey to my wife that I'm really thinking about her, that I want to make sure that she knows how much I appreciate who she is and what she is and what she does. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the same way, the Rambam compares the relationships and says when we love God, and this is really what Rosh Hashanah should be about. It should be about our ability to elevate ourselves to the point where we are sort of completely, we remove our needs, we remove the superficiality of what sometimes drives us throughout the regular year, and recognize God runs this world, and I'm fully here to recognize that control and that dominion and that greatness of God, the King. It's all about His royalty, not because He needs us to say that He's royal. He doesn't need us to say He's King of the world. We need to recognize His greatness. We need to recognize what He means to us and what He's given us and how much we appreciate it. So if we sort of start thinking of this as a paradigm of, wow, can I nail a mitzvah? Can I nail one where it's not, I'm not rushing, I'm not hustling, I'm not bustling, I'm not doing things because people are expecting me to. It's not about it's going to be written up. It's not about some club or some place where we're going to have sort of, pat each other on the back. It's going to be purely about doing the right thing. And that's really what our true service to God should be about. It should be about that level. I'll give you, the Rambam quotes the Gemara. It's an incredible Gemara that gives us an idea of how far the Rambam takes this, about this idea. And when you think about it, it really, it encapsulates such beauty, because it sort of takes some of the pressure off. And again, God forbid, we can't not do any mitzvah. I mean, if a mitzvah is there that we have to do it. But if we listen to the words of the Cholos Havavos, forget the numbers. It's not about the numbers. Don't think about piling on and, another thing, another volunteer. maybe it'll take me longer. I'll just do one mitzvah of chesed this week, but boy, will that be a mitzvah of chesed. That chesed, that kindness, that sensitivity, that reaching out to somebody else will have such purity and such sincerity and zero ulterior motive that literally it'll be that home run. It'll be that, that grand slam hit out of the park. Yes.
Do we get some kind of credit for not doing Averas?
Absolutely. I mean, when a Jew does not do an Avera, there are two types of not doing Averas. Okay, there's a temptation where you resist temptation, and that is unbelievable. I mean, that's why Yosef HaTzadik was called Yosef HaTzadik, because here's this woman grabbing at his robe, saying, "Live with me, because we're going to produce, greatness in the seed you're going to give me, and therefore you need to lie with me." And he resisted. That gave him the unique title that almost nobody else in Jewish history ever got, and that is Yosef HaTzadik. So if you have a temptation and you resist, that's off the charts. That's huge beyond, and that's similar, especially when you resist for the right reasons, for no other reason but for the purity of being loyal to God. That's huge. But it's interesting. The commentaries also say, but even if you resist, I as I drive home tonight back to the valley, I might pass what's that corner burger place right there in the Wilshire, Beverly, whatever. There's a Rocket thing. What? Yeah, whatever. So in other words, if I pass by that place and I don't stop and get a non-kosher burger, I can't say I can't feel good about myself. It's not a test. Okay, stopping at a McDonald's and getting a double cheeseburger is not something that I even remotely think about. But you know what? The fact that even though right now it doesn't tempt me, the commentaries say, but I still get rewarded for that. Because, and this is true on any level that we're on, any level of Judaism, even though right now it's not a test for us, we hopefully worked on ourselves to get ourselves to the point where it's no longer a test. So you know what? Maybe 40 years ago it might have been a test, or something else might have been a test, which I've now put on the back burners as not being a relevant challenge for me, but since I built myself up, I still get rewarded for that. So on any level, when we don't do something wrong, yes, there is a level of recognition that that's a major thing. It's a major deal. You got a question? Oh, okay. So the Rambam. So getting back to the Rambam. In other words, so if we can sort of try to focus on this and sort of try to slow it down and say, you know what, I'm going to focus on the quality and not so much on the quantity. That will do so much for ourselves, and it'll do so much for our relation with God. Because see, when we're doing something with total purity, it transforms us. It's literally, it's almost like a metamorphosis of what we are and who we are in our relation with God. So Rambam says he explains an incredible Gemara. The Gemara says, one of the 10 people, we read about 10 people who passed away, who were martyred about 2,000 years ago. And we read about it on Yom Kippur, and we read about it on Tishrei. And one of these people was a rabbi called Hanina ben Trajan, an incredible rabbi. I mean, they were all amazing. All of these people were angelic individuals. And this rabbi, Hanina ben Trajan, was once sick, and he was being visited by a number of his friends. And this was a person who put his life on the line every day to teach Torah in public. So even though the Romans made decrees and he was literally putting his life in danger, he did not desist from doing what he felt he needed to do when he taught Torah publicly. Okay, so he's sick one day and his friends are visiting him, and then as his friends are about to depart, he says, I got a question for you. Could you please answer my question? Sure, Rabbi Hanina ben Trajan, sure, ask her. Yeah, if we can answer your question, we'd love to answer your question. He says, tell me, am I a ben olam haba? Am I a man going to the next world? Am I going to merit the next world? Right? It's a question that maybe sometimes in a quiet moment we ponder at night. Who am I? How's my life? What am I doing? Do I deserve? Is my soul going to live on? And these are serious questions that Jews sometimes ask themselves. So he asks his friends, "Do you think I'm going to Olam Haba? Do I merit the next world?" Now, if I was writing this Gemara, or if I was imagining the story, I would have said that the rabbis turned to him and said, "Hello, you're asking if you're a Bet Olam Haba? Of course you're a Bet Olam Haba. What kind of question are you asking me? Look at you, you're Bechina ben Trajan, you're one of the greatest people of our generation. You teach Torah publicly, you put your life on the line, and you risk your life every single day to teach the Jewish people Torah. Is there any question? Of course you're a Bet Olam Haba." That's what I would have thought the Gemara was going to say. The Gemara doesn't say that. It's amazing. You know what the rabbi said to him? He says, well, tell me what you've done. Tell me what you've done. So he says, I'll tell you what I've done. A couple of years ago, I had some money that some of it was mine, and some of it was set aside for poor people during Purim time. We know that Purim is a special time to give away tzedakah, give away charity to impoverished people. So I got the money mixed up, and I ended up giving it all away. And the rabbi said, if that's what you did, yes, you're going to Olam Haba. And the Rambam uses this Gemara to reflect this point that he just made. Here's a man who's teaching Torah publicly to thousands of Jews. I mean, he's changing the landscape of the Jewish people. But you know what? It doesn't punch your ticket, so to speak, to the next world, because it's not something done in private. It's not humble. It's not pure. I mean, maybe it is, but it's not by definition pure. But if you're sitting in your room and no one is there, no one's ever going to know about this particular thing that you're doing. It's just literally between you and God and somebody maybe you're going to impact down the line. And you bothered to give all of your tzedakah away. You gave all the money, and you didn't have to. You could have kept some of it for yourself. Legally, you could have kept some of it for yourself. But you chose to give it all away. That act, done with purity, yes. The answer is you are a ben Olam Haba. You're going to Olam Haba. So if you stop and you reflect about what this Gemara is saying to us, it's saying this very idea. And what's scary is, it goes both ways. You had mentioned about, I thought you were going to go into another direction, because, your point is well taken. What about not doing something? That also, it could punch your ticket given the right level and the right reasons. But what about, God forbid, an Avera? The Rambam says a very interesting thing. And he says that sometimes when you talk about, tzaddikim, rishonim, and beinanim. So you're going to hear a lot of talk, possibly, it's a very good chance you're going to hear a lot of talk that between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we're sort of held in abeyance. So it's sort of like a limbo state. We were waiting for the final decree from God, which happens on Yom Kippur. So, and what we are conventionally are told is that we're a beinanim. Okay, if we have more merits than we're a tzaddik and we get inscribed positively. If God forbid we're on the negative end of things in terms of more negatives than positives when we're on the negative end of things, and if we're beinanim, we're in the middle. So the Rambam says, but when you talk about being a tzaddik or a rasha, when you talk about being a righteous person or a not righteous person, it's not numbers. It's not a numbers game. You can't say, well, okay, I spoke Lashon Hara 4 times, I missed 6 brachas, okay, I have 27 averos, but I made 22 brachas, I helped 17 people, so I have 52 mitzvos. Okay, great, I have more mitzvos than averos, so I'm good to go. It doesn't work that way. The Rambam says, again, the same idea coming up again and again. It's not quantitative. He says it's qualitative. So you can have somebody doing a great mitzvah, and that can outweigh many, many negative actions that you've done. But look at this mitzvah that you did. Or you can do, God forbid, one aveirah, and the aveirah, the sin that a person committed, could be so serious that because it's so basic, it's so fundamental, and it so cuts to the negative aspect of what you've done or what you're doing to yourself, that it can outweigh a lot of good things. So again, here you have it again. It's about quality. It's not about quantity, it's about quality. In fact, that's why the Sefer Chinuch writes, we just read in this week's Parsha, right? We know that the nation of Ammon and Moab are not allowed to marry into the Jewish fold. An Ammon man or a Moab man cannot marry a Jewish woman. An Ammon woman and a Moabite woman, such as Ruth, the great Ruth, right? She could marry into the Jewish fold, but not the men. Why not the men? What the men do so bad?
I don't get it, because it's like the opposite. Like, how could that be?
Sometimes the Torah, favors the woman over the man. It's not always a male-dominated religion. No, in fact, very often, to me, I would say the men are the ones who should be complaining. I mean, we're getting off on a tangent, but I always say to my students in the girls' school, I know you're complaining. We should be the one complaining. We cannot produce a Jewish child. God gave only a woman the ability to produce a Jewish child. We should be out there with our, with our signs protesting on the streets. It's not fair. The Torah is, unfair to men. We don't have the ability to produce a Jewish child. If we marry a Gentile woman, the kid is not Jewish. And if a Jewish woman marries a Gentile man, the kid is Jewish. Not fair. Okay, but whatever. But I'm working on that protest one day, but it hasn't happened yet. But anyway, so the point is that, the Torah goes many different directions. Very often, it's hard to predict. But the point is that when it comes to Ammon and Moab, so the Sefer HaChinuch says, why was it that these men were not allowed to marry into the fold? The Egyptians, after 3 generations, they could come in. An Egyptian man could come in after 3 years. But what did Ammon and Moab do? And he says the same idea. It's incredible. He says, because you couldn't come out with some bread and water to give to the Jewish people. Here's a nation starving and thirsty and forlorn, so to speak, traveling and wandering in the desert, and they pass you by. And it isn't like you never received any good from us. I mean, we did help you guys out. So you couldn't do the basic decency of not being able to come out and give us some bread and some water? So it's a sign of a complete disregard for basic decency. This is not acceptable. You can't pull off this. And the Torah says, because your sin was so gross, not gross. I didn't hurt anybody. It isn't like I didn't kill anybody, but it reflects such a lack of decency. And here you have it again, where the things that we do, it really gets to the core of where is it coming from? What is this negative action? Or more importantly, what our focus is tonight is the positive actions. Where is it coming from? And if we can sort of really get to our pure source of saying, why am I here? I'm here to do the right thing. But not the right thing for myself, not the right thing for flamboyance and for recognition. And then again, when we have a 10-year-old kid, or even let's go even earlier, when you have a 3-year-old kid and a lot of the Jews have a custom. I'm from more the Litvish side. At least my yeshiva background is, and we don't do the hair cutting at 3, but many people do the hair cutting at 3 years old. And
When do you do it?
and whenever the kid's hair is long.
Yeah, right. Really?
Yeah, I'm serious. Yeah. It's a more of a Hasidic thing. It sort of was adopted by the whole religious world, but in Europe it was pretty much a Litvish Hasidic breakdown.
So interesting.
Yeah, but the point is, what do? We have a big thing. We cut the kid's hair. It's 3 years old, and we have the letters, the olive bays. We put candies on the olive bays, and we make everything sweet. So there is a concept of sweetening things and making mitzvos appealing, even from a youngest age. But you know what? Eventually, and I'm not saying there's any good time when this time is, but eventually we got to get to a little bit of a different level. We can't only be doing things because they'll give us recognition, or other people know, or it makes us feel good for maybe not. I mean, it can make us feel good for a holy reason, but it makes us feel good for some other ulterior motive or some peer pressure that we're feeling. Again, when I tell you not to do it, God forbid. There is a famous rule in Jewish thought: mitoch shelo lishma, ba lishma. When you do things for the wrong reasons, eventually you'll do them for the right reasons. So I would definitely say let's keep doing it for the wrong reasons, and eventually we'll get to the right reason. But let's appreciate what the real goal is. The real goal is the right reason. The real goal is to do it in fact, I don't want anybody to know. In fact, the special people who give tzedakah, these are few and far between, but I happen to be very blessed at Valley Torah. We have some incredible supporters, and everyone fights harder than the other one for anonymity. They don't want to be. They don't want the big banquets. They don't want the bright lights. They don't want the name on the building. We have to twist their arms sometimes, but they don't want it. And it's really very, it's really comforting to know that there are people out there who do amazing things. They don't want anybody to know, right? And those are the special actions. That's why when they told Rabbi Chinam and Trajan, when he said, I was sitting in my room all by myself and I took that Purim money, I gave it all to poor people. They said, that's big. It sounds crazy. That's bigger than teaching Torah, risking your life at the risk of being killed at the stake by the Romans, and here you're teaching Torah publicly. But it is, because it's completely private. It's completely pure. It's nothing else. Okay, bottom line is, I certainly can argue. I came here to talk to an incredible group of young ladies, and I could say I did it, purely for the sake of giving a share for no other reasons, but I'd be lying, right? I mean, by definition, you're giving a share to people, you appreciate that they're listening, you're able to share ideas, which is some level of gratification. So I'm not saying it's a terrible motivation, but to get it to be really pure, you got to work on that. You got to think about it. It doesn't come automatically. That I'll just do a mitzvah and it'll be pure. That needs focus. That needs time. That needs reflection. That needs preparation. And that's really what this particular time of year is about. It's about that kind of reflection and that type of preparation. If you look at the introduction to this week's parsha, Parshas Kiseitze, last week's parsha, we just read it, Parshas Kiseitze, the Rabbi Bechai says something very interesting, and appreciate that. So Mishlei, the pasuk says, "Tana b'ni lib chali," that I'm asking for your heart. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, that's what I want. Of course, I want the mitzvos because that's the way you can show me your heart. But if you think for a second that by going through the motions and not having the heart, and that's why, women, make the men look bad more often than not when it comes to davening, because you guys, again, when you sort of take a cursory look around Klal Yisrael, the women have this incredible ability to connect to the words and connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in their davening. And for a man, it's much harder. But stop and think for a second. A guy runs to shul, and he throws his tefillin on in 2 seconds, and he just davens off the thing. He sounds like some kind of lawnmower as he's going through Shachris, okay? And he wraps up, he takes his tefillin off, and he runs into the car, and you have to give him some credit. I mean, the man, he got out of bed, he went to shul, he davened Shachris, it's all good, right? Well, it's all good, but wouldn't it be sad, after 120 years, and God says, that's all you had? You were basically almost in automatic pilot, and that's you're running through life. Is that really what it's about? When all I wanted, Tana b'ni lib chali, I'm just asking for something. It's not so simple, right? Taking my heart is not so simple. Okay, it's much simpler to sort of blow the feather in the other direction. But at the end of the day, that's all God really wants, and that's what we have to try to deliver. And really, at this particular time of the year, that's the focus that I think we have to really find, because if you look at the prayers of Rosh Hashanah, which is again less than 2 weeks away, it's about recognition, it's about clarity, it's about doing things for purity, for about recognizing God's rule over the world, which really can only happen when we recognize how much we love Him and how much we appreciate what He does for us. And that's where the relationship comes in. It's getting back to that love affair, right? There's no way, and that's why it's very interesting. Sefer HaChinuch, we just read in this last week's parsha, the man and the woman, after they get married, what has to happen for 1 year?
You can't go anywhere.
Right, can't separate. Okay, you have to get special permission. It becomes all big to do. For 1 year, they're together, and it's a serious law. It's not, it's a serious. And the Sefer HaChinuch says, if you want to develop love, you've got to be there. You've got to be there with your wife, and you have to focus on her. She has to be the central thought process of that entire year, so that it should become almost like second nature. That another woman, where and why and how, it should be a foreign thought. He says. In other words, we always thought it's about solidifying the love, but he says it even more, directly, that it's also about not even going anyplace else. Why would your mind even be tempted in another direction? This is who you love, and this is who you're committed to. And by having that 1 year where you're completely immersed in one another's relationship and feelings and emotions, then that solidifies that where you're not going to want to go anyplace else. That's what mitzvah should be about. That's the way we should be relating to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with this idea. Maybe one other point that goes along with it, and also, and I think elaborates on a little bit more. I don't think I shared this with you last year, but also an amazing Gemara where there was a famine in the land, and they asked the greatest rabbi of the generation. His name was Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer was asked to pray, and all the Jewish people, we needed the rain. It was incredibly, life-threatening. It was incredible pressure, and they prayed and they prayed and they prayed, and no rain came. Rabbi Elazar Gadol, the great rabbi, went to the front of the room, and yet he couldn't. And all the Jews prayed behind him, and no rains came. So they calculated, well, so we tried number one, and the number one person couldn't do it. Let's try number two. So they went to Rabbi Akiva. And he asked Rabbi Akiva, can you go up and pray for us? And can you lead us in prayers? It's at that time that the famous Avinu Malkeinu that we say during the 10 days of repentance, Avinu, beautiful prayer, Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King. He said those words in the Gemara, in Tainus, the Gemara relates that. He said those words then, and he broke down emotionally, and the rains came. And everybody was astounded. So wait a minute, maybe we made a mistake. If Rabbi Elazar, who was known to be number one, couldn't bring the rain, and Rabbi Akiva, who was the number two man of the generation, could bring the rain, well, maybe Rabbi Akiva is really number one, and maybe Rabbi Elazar is really number two. To which they said, no. Not they. Actually, the Gemara says a heavenly voice came out, okay, and gave a baskol, called a baskol. A heavenly voice came and said, don't make that mistake. Don't think for a second Rabbi Elazar is number two. Rabbi Elazar is the greatest man of the generation. However, there's a difference between Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Akiva. And the reason why God answered Rabbi Akiva, not Rabbi Elazar, says the Gemara, because Rabbi Elazar was not Mavra Amidosav, and Rabbi Akiva was. Now, what does those words mean, Mavra Amidosav? I'm going to leave the conventional explanation out right now. I'm just going to focus on what I want to share with you, which is said over by a number of different commentators. And they say what it means, Mavra Amidosav, means you sort of have to go over your natural inclination. And they explain as follows. Rabbi Elazar was the greatest man of his generation. He was born in royalty. The minute he came into the world, there was Sfarim all around him. He heard his father learning Torah. His mother was an incredible tzaddikus. He heard Moda'ani every morning from the time he was probably 1 day old. Okay, his mother probably washed him, Natil Sedayim every morning, even before he even needed to. And he grew up with that proverbial, silver becher in his mouth. Okay, so it was easy for him. Was he more pristine and was he more perfect than Rabbi Akiva? He was. But you know what? That's great, but that will not get you God's automatic response. Rabbi Akiva, he was brought up by people who hated Torah. He was brought up by people who hated rabbis. He wanted to kill rabbis. He had such a hatred for rabbis. The Gemara says he wanted to kill them. He literally wanted to rip their faces off. That's how much he couldn't. And he was not naturally gifted with a pristine personality and in a spiritual environment. So that Rabbi Akiva, who overcame, who was able to persevere, and this is another aspect of that purity that I think is borne out by this Gemara. Sometimes we look at ourselves and say, how can I be pure? Look at me. I have this fault and I have that fault. I have this problem and that problem. Listen, we all have our challenges. And maybe, we look at the tzaddikim and we think the tzaddikim are those people who are born into such perfect environments and such perfect homes and have wonderful parents and I don't have all that, and I have this issue and that issue. I come from this home and that home, and sometimes we think we're therefore second-class citizens, and we sometimes throw in the towel. But stop and reflect. God says to us, again, compare Rabbi Akiva's heart to Rabbi Elazar's heart. Rabbi Elazar had a very pure heart, but that heart didn't have to exert itself. It didn't have to go through things to get to where it needed to go. Okay, a heart that needs to overcome and climb that mountain and persevere after this challenge and that challenge and get to a point, even if that point is not as great on the surface as somebody else's level. But God says, I can't resist that person. Look at what they put in. Again, I think it goes back to the heart. You need more heart, you need more effort, you need more purity, you need more energy and just commitment and determination. And God says, that's your heart. Okay, your heart's working overtime. You're climbing that mountain. You're putting in extra energy. You're putting in the extra, effort. You're expending more calories to get closer to me. I can't ignore that. That is more special to me, and that puts you in a place where even the great Rabbi Elazar couldn't go to. So, I think if we look at sort of life and our relation with God in these terms, to sort of not let whatever challenges we face. And again, clearly I know I'm talking to a very diverse group of girls, but my sense is that Many of you are just, so I mean, probably all of you are so special. But I mean, just the fact that some of you, if not many of you, who knows, maybe all of you, just had challenges and had to overcome certain things to get to this point where it wasn't all put out there in a silver platter for you. It wasn't just given to you. And you had to fight for it. You had to sort of search for the truth. You had to sort of grab it and take it away and sort of clutch it to your own heart, as opposed to sort of let it just be spoon-fed. On the one hand, you might look at that as, being a little bit of a disability, but it's not. If anything, it's an unbelievable sort of step up that the FFB, so to speak, those who are from birth and maybe had it much easier, it's really not a advantage for the FFBs at all, because that puts a person in a very special place. Now, I'm just going to end with one story, which I think is a very powerful story. I don't think I should. I should take notes, but I don't think I shared it with this group. I think there are many of you anyway that I think that are new. But again, just the idea of slowing things down. How if we don't slow things down and focus on quantity instead of quality, we don't allow, the reflection of every single day to sort of stay in our minds, to sort of always ask the question, what does God really want from me right now? And that's the key question that all Jews have to ask. Right now, given this situation, what does God really want? And we very often don't do that because we're too much in either in a speed mode or in a cruise control mode, or we're not thinking enough. So I want to just share this story with you. It's a powerful story. It's about a fellow who, in the early 1900s, woke up in the middle of the night in a very cold sweat, and his body was shaking. And he says to his wife, I just had the most horrific dream. I need to speak to the Rabbi. He said, okay, so go speak to the Rabbi. He'll straighten you out. So he runs to the Rabbi that morning, and he's shaking, and he's visibly upset. And the Rabbi says, no, what's the problem? He says, Rabbi, I had the most horrific dream. What's the dream? He says, I dreamt that I passed on to the next world. And in the next world, they have a rabbinic tribunal there. They have the judges that are judging my life. And I had my defense attorney get up there, and the screen comes down, and he presses the button, this is your life. And my life starts flashing in front of the court from the time I was 13 all the way till the end of my life. And the defense attorney says, look at this guy, this Yankel, his name was Yankel. Look at this guy, he was a beautiful shochet, he slaughtered kosher meat for the entire community, he did so many mitzvos. And his whole life is mitzvah after mitzvah after mitzvah after mitzvah. Just a gorgeous life. Everything seemed great. So he says, you got to let him in. Open those pearly gates and just let him through, because this man deserves the next world. So they're all shaking their head. Yeah, it seems like a no-brainer. This guy led an incredible life. So let's open up the gates and let him through to Gan Eden. Let him go into heaven. So all of a sudden, before the official gates opened up, the prosecutor gets up. Okay. Straight out of Mueller's office, and he says, whoa, wait a minute. He says, not so fast. You skipped a little part of this man's life. Let's go to a different part of the videotape. And he presses a button, and a little different scene flashes on the big screen, and it's a scene of Yankel leaving his office, where he used to slaughter his animals, Friday afternoon, about 2 hours before Shabbos. And he leaves his office, and all of a sudden there's a widow who sees Yankel and says, Yankel, I'm so happy. I'm so happy to see you. I'm so excited because my husband passed away, and she was a widow, and then she lost her husband about a few months ago, and I haven't been able to give my children any meat, any food, any real food for months. So I have this chicken. Someone just gave me this chicken. Can you please slaughter it for me so I can have food for Shabbos? And Yankel says, now? You didn't make an appointment. You didn't call me. I have to go to the mikveh. I have to taste my food. I got to prepare all the things for Shabbos. I can't. But Yankel, please, my children, and she's crying, and tears are coming down her face. And Yankel walks into the sunset, leaving this crying widow at the wayside. And the prosecutor says, this is a man you want to send straight through the pearly gates? How could you? Look at what he did. And the tribunal says, yeah, that's right. So, Yankel, you have two choices. We can either send you back down, and you can try to do it again, this time get it right, or you'll have to spend some time in purgatory. You'll have to, it won't be so pleasant, but you got to pay. You got to pay for that crime. and you have 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, and just Rebbe, just when it got to 1 second left, that's when I woke up. And I have not been able to go back to sleep, and I've been shaking ever since. Please tell me, what should I do? He says, well, when did this happen? I said, it never happened. Never happened? Was there any type of negative thing you did to somebody? Did anybody ever ask you to? No, not at all. Nothing close. He says, so then why are you bugging me? If nothing like this ever happened, go back to your regular life and just live your wonderful guy. Don't worry about it. But Rebbe, it felt so real. It was real. Listen, it didn't happen. You told me nothing close would happen. Go on with your life. He goes on with his life, and after 20 plus years, this dream gets embedded to the deep back subconscious of his mind. And believe it or not, that dream wasn't a dream about something that happened. It was a dream about something that was going to happen. 20 years later, Yankel's a little bit slower. He's not as energetic as he used to be, but sure enough, he's still doing his job. And he leaves his work 2 hours before Shabbos. And as he walks out of his office, sure enough, there's a voice. Yankel, I'm so happy to see you. You know, I just lost my husband a few months ago. Can you please, I got a chicken now. Somebody gave me a chicken. I can give my children food for the first time, some real meat. Literally, exactly in the dream. Yankel says, now I have to go to the mikveh. I have so many things I have to do. You can't do this. You just pop up out of here before Shabbos. It doesn't work. Come to me Sunday morning. But Yankel, for Shabbos, my kids are hungry. Please, you have to help me out. And sure enough, the tears are rolling down her cheeks. And Yankel just walks off into the sunset. And this is a true story. This is a well-documented true story. And Yankel goes home, takes care of everything, gets ready for Shabbos, goes to shul, comes home, and as the cup is in his hand, and he's making kiddush, it hits him. Close. It hits him. And he faints on the spot. And they revive him. Yankel, you okay? Okay. Yeah, I'm okay, but quick, get all the food, get the chicken soup, get the fish, get the chicken. We're going to the Almana's house. We're going to the widow's house right away. I can't believe what I just did. I can't believe it. Go, quick. So when I read the story in a book, the person writing the book and writing the story basically made the point that he went to the widow's house. He asked for forgiveness. She forgave him, and sort of, he ended on a positive note. But there was an eerie footnote to the end of that story. The eerie footnote is that was the last Shabbos of Yankel's life. He passed away that Saturday night.
Oh my God.
And
So crazy.
and when I read this, I had such chills going down my back, because I said to myself, and I know I see some of the expressions here in the room that you agree with me. You say, how could that happen? How could that happen? How could Yankel, after having that dream, being so shaken to the core about what he thought he did in terms of the heavenly view of what he did, and it never happened, but he had that dream, and yet 20 years later, that opportunity actually comes in a real live situation, in real time, and he's able to walk away from that almana. And to me, it said such a powerful message. I think what that story tells us is that you can be a very good person, but if you don't because they went through his life, they couldn't find anything else wrong. But if you don't slow things down and really stop and reflect and ask yourself, what does God really want now? That whole robotic kind of scene of, it's great to have a schedule and a routine, all that is great, but you have to see the opportunities in front of you. You have to see that for this kind of situation, and again, it goes back to the purity, to the commitment, and the heart. Okay, where was Yankel's heart? Was his heart focused in the right place to do what needed to be done? He let that almana, standing there crying. So I think that's really our job. Our job is to really slow life down, to reflect on the gifts that we have. Baruch Hashem, the fact that 2 weeks before Rosh Hashanah, and you guys could be anywhere. LA is an exciting place, but you choose to be here. You choose to be part of an incredible group. You have incredible people that are guiding you and teaching you and leading you. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing to really use this time of Elul, the time of Rosh Hashanah, to really reconnect with God in the proper way, to reflect properly on what our job really is in this world. And as Hashem, as the Rambam says, you know what? If we can just nail one perfectly and get it really right, that'll punch our ticket into Olam Haba. But let's hope that we collectively, as a group and as Klal Yisrael, can do a lot of things right and really nail a lot of mitzvahs the way it should be. And that's Chus B'ez Hashem. We'll have a great year and merit the coming of Mashiach. May it remain.